Hey class, let's talk a little bit about integration paper 3. And so as you can see, I'm clicked into week 11, the Cold War, Civil Rights, and New Immigration. So before we get started, let's keep in mind that a lot of the curriculum that we're going to use for this particular paper is going to be embedded in this week, but also embedded in last week, including readings and videos. So let me scroll down here and let's take a look at integration worksheet that I posted. I wish I had posted this a little sooner, so my apologies. So let's click on that worksheet really quickly here. And so as we take a look at this worksheet, there's a couple of boxes that I'd love for you to attend to. And so in the discussion of comparing these particular groups in the post-war period and entering the Cold War, I want you to think about how hard work has always mattered to our communities, but I want you to think about how hard work is now being rewarded by different structural experiences that are related to introduction of new policies or the dismantling of old policies. And so I don't want to shame any of the groups that have made success economically in the United States, but I do want to make sure that we're not suggesting that their success is just about hard work. So let's start with Jewish Americans. So, the Jewish American Experience is written by Karen Brodkin. So, here's the author Brodkin right here. We're going to have to go back into World War II week to really kind of think about what Brodkin says. And so, she, as a Jewish American anthropologist herself, really kind of questions this idea why Jewish Americans were able to be relatively successful in about one generation after their arrival in the United States in the post war period. And so, I want you to kind of think about how the GI Bill, which really gave education benefits to people who were eligible to serve in the military, and federal housing subsidies really kind of conditioned the way that what Brodkin calls Euro ethnics really were able to achieve mobility in the United States. So, this particular housing subsidy component could also be found in the film Race, The Power of an Illusion, which is also embedded in the World War II week. And so I want you to always think comparatively. Could African Americans really kind of benefit from the GI Bill and the federal housing subsidies that Jewish Americans did? In other words, is it fair to compare the African American experience with that of Jewish Americans? Brodkin says no, and Lipsitz also says no. So check out the Lipsitz reading from the World War II week to really argue that expecting African Americans to kind of model their mobility after Jewish Americans was impossible, not because of the hard work part, but really because of the structural policy part. And so when you're thinking about Asian Americans here, a new stereotype emerges about Asian Americans, calling them model minorities. And so we can see that one of the significant policies that really impacts the reconstruction of Asian American experiences is the Immigration Act of 1965. And so let me go ahead and click backwards here and go back into the week. And let's take a look at some of the immigration policies that help different communities reconstruct um, their racial identities and relationships in the United States. So if we click on this resource that I gave you, it's the 1952 McCarran-Walter Act and the Hart-Celler Act of 1965. If you look at now the way that immigration has been comprehensively changed, and this is really where the last time we saw immigration change happen in the United States. And so take a look at how immigration now favors both family members and high skilled immigrants, but also people from the professions. All right. And so if you check out the third preference here, members of the professions of exceptional ability in sciences and arts and their spouses and children. What this means is that we're going to have a new stereotype where Asian Americans are reconstructed as the good at math professionals and quote unquote the model minorities. To help you with navigating these policies, go ahead and click on the Shelley Lee reading, The Watershed of 1965 and the Remaking of Asian America. And so Shelley Lee kind of details the ways that policy really helps Asian Americans in their mobility, of course, coupled with hard work. Now, let's click back here and let's head to the worksheet again. Now you got to compare the Asian American experience with that of the African American experience. Now, would the African American community be able to benefit by way of immigration? Do you think any African American community members at this point really know family members in Africa generations and generations removed from slavery? And so when you think about whether or not it's fair to compare the African American experience with other people of color and people who are becoming white, like Jewish Americans, you got to make the argument that it's almost impossible. And so this paper asks you to think about mobility, but to really emphasize that structural privileges and policies still matter much more than whether or not a person is individually motivated to work hard. And so start there, message me with questions if you have any. Good luck. This is a challenging assignment, but I think y'all got it.